I'm meteorologist Alexandra Cranford at WWL Louisiana. We're getting you the latest on what's happening with some rain over the metro area of New Orleans, as well as north of Lake Pontchartrain. So we're tracking it with our live radar here. We've been seeing some pretty heavy totals of 2+ inches of rain, and that has prompted a couple of different street flood advisories from the National Weather Service. I'll zoom in on our newest one, and this is really the main one at this point that is active. We've had a couple earlier in the afternoon, but if you look closely, you can see a turquoise box here, including all of this part, the eastern kind of half of New Orleans into New Orleans East, and a chunk of the West Bank as well into St. Bernard. This is all a flood advisory that will be in effect until 4:30. We're just now at 2:50 p.m. So we have almost 2 hours to go that this advisory is in effect. But really the key is just that we've seen some heavy rain. There may be some streets, especially the ones you know about, that tend to flood under heavy downpours that do have water in them at this point. So just a heads up there. Again, some of our rain totals and what we're seeing with the radar trends is really just some back building. However, it does look like we might begin to get a break. Actually, look at that. There's a new flash flood warning that has just gone into effect. So getting you the latest as it's happening here. But I wanted to point out that a few spots have seen about 3 inches of rain, like City Hall has just on WeatherWise, the city network has just recorded 3.08 inches of rain. And then other spots like Treme and New Orleans East, about 2.5 inches of rain. Loyola close to about 2 inches uptown. And some spots like City Park not saying as much. But again, let me get you the latest. This is our new upgraded warning here, a flash flood warning for a chunk of the West Bank and into New Orleans, the southeast part of New Orleans, from uptown into really the central business district, the warehouse district, the French Quarter, part of Treme into Marigny, Bywater, and into the lower 9th Ward in Arabi. So we are seeing this flash flood warning. It looks like going until 5:45 p.m. So that's a while. But what we have is just that heavy rain that has been coming down, and it's still coming down. So one thing I will say is that it's not just a completely bright red or hot pink just blob right over New Orleans. So you may notice it's heavy rain here and there, but it might also let up at times. Still, it might lead to some flooding concerns, and in fact could already be leading to some flooding issues, especially again in those locations that you know tend to flood. Coming in on my way to work, I saw briefly a little spot in the French Quarter on Esplanade and Dauphine that had a bit of water in it. So you can easily see with the continuation of these downpours why there's a flash flood warning in effect. And of course, you can understand that there might be some spots with the flooding. So again, flash flood warning in effect for the green box here in New Orleans into the West Bank and part of St. Bernard. It looks like it does go all the way to Arabi for these heavy downpours. Let me sample quickly how heavy this rain is that we're talking about. That part of the storm, 1 inch per hour. Over here, about 1 inch per hour. How about that cell over Metairie? Let's see. Not quite an inch per hour, at least for the part that I sampled there. Let me look at another location. About 3/4 of an inch per hour. How about over near Kenner? Because there is some thunderstorm activity, unfortunately, right around the airport for folks trying to leave the city of New Orleans. Maybe after Easter weekend, you can see almost 2 inches per hour with that cell right there. And what we've seen is an environment where these cells are what we call back building. They're able to tap into energy coming up behind the rain and start to move that heavier rain spot backward a little bit. And sometimes this can be like a training sort of effect. So that's what we're seeing right now. We're not really looking at this batch that you see here to just definitively move in and then move out. It looks like it will be generally hanging around for a little while. So that's why we have that flash flood warning. Let me check in with the National Weather Service really quickly and just get you information on that warning as far as what they have been seeing. The thunderstorms that have the heavy rain are causing some flash flooding or will shortly. So that's when you get the warnings in effect. flash flooding caused by thunderstorms, and that's a pretty general sort of description for this flash flood warning. But you can clearly see on radar that there is the heavy rain, especially farther a little bit south of the city, actually, like we've been saying, around Estelle into Gretna, Terrytown, Algiers. All of these locations getting some pretty heavy rain at this point. And again, I'm also checking out over near Kenner because there is another big area of that heavy rain on the west side of Kenner, right around Metairie as well, filling in right over parts of Uptown, the River Bend area. We're seeing that heavier rain too. What I will say is that, again, these rainfall rates are not the highest that I've ever seen. Sometimes we have summer thunderstorms that bring higher rainfall rates, but it is an environment where these cells really don't have a lot of steering to kind of push them in one direction or another. You can see rainfall rates here up to now about 2 to 3 inches per hour. So that's certainly enough. If it does hang over, of course, that would give you 2 or 3 inches per hour. So that could be enough to lead to some flooding issues. That's why we have our flash flood warning that's now in effect for that green shaded area. And if you're just joining us on streaming or wherever you're watching us, YouTube, whatever, we do have a new flash flood warning, and it's for that bright green shaded area. So I'll zoom in here. You can see who's included. It goes into St. Bernard, and it also extends into the West Bank, Terrytown, just outside of Marrero, and farther south almost to Estelle. So a big chunk of our West Bank folks are going to be under this around Gretna, again close to Terrytown and Algiers. Bywater, all of these spots around into New Orleans East, into Arabi and St. Bernard. We have spots you can see over toward the French Quarter into Treme, and a chunk of Uptown, including the CBD and the Warehouse District. And these are the neighborhoods that are going to be possibly seeing some potential street flooding. Again, the most common spots would, of course, be where you tend to see them, where that water, if you know about a spot in your neighborhood that tends to fill up with water when we get these heavy downpours, that would be a spot I would definitely avoid if you have to be out and about driving. Again, we have the heavy rain north of the lake. We've seen it as well, edging into Slidell. However, it is not as heavy there. Moving into today, we knew we would have a higher rain chance, and probably for many spots at least, we would end this 2-week-long dry spell. A lot of people are saying, bring me some rain. I could use a shower. We really don't need too much rain all at once. You never need that. But a nice shower, a nice good soaking would be a good thing. But we are seeing it set up really right over the city and right along the south shore of Lake Pontchartrain. And again, just spreading now into Slidell and right over the Twin Spans too. Over the causeway, we have light rain. And one other thing that we've been seeing from the National Weather Service, they're pointing out that they've gotten some reports of some funnel clouds as well. So if those can form in an environment like this, especially where there's not a lot of steering, sometimes we see this with a lot of moisture. We can see funnel clouds, which form a lot easier than tornadoes. However, if a funnel cloud does reach all the way to the surface, then it is a tornado. So we'll be watching for that too. But there have been a couple reports of people citing those around Kenner and around Hahnville. We heard that earlier today as well. That was something around the Hahnville Parody kind of area, some funnel clouds from earlier. So now really the main concern is just this rain that we have going. We have some lightning strokes and thunder as well, but not really the strong or severe weather is so much the concern with these storms. It's really just that rain that's going to continue. So you can see it here, that heavy rain across a large swath of the West Bank, over on the west side of Kenner, over much of New Orleans and Metairie, and into New Orleans East, and it does lighten up as you get over the Twin Spans. But if you're, say, in Slidell, thinking about moving or coming across the lake into New Orleans, driving that way, you're going to hit some pretty heavy rain, some moderate to heavy rain across I-10 when you get to really just past the Twin Spans and then through New Orleans East into New Orleans. It's not extremely heavy. You could probably see through it on the road. Sometimes you get these downpours that are just completely blinding. There might be a couple of smaller pockets like that, but mostly I think we could be okay. But these reds, where you see those around Old Jefferson, it's a big part of Metairie now, lining up right around the south foot of the causeway. All of this is pretty heavy, and especially look over here. This is kind of what I was looking for with those higher rainfall totals. right here close to the river, that's your 5-inch per hour plus rainfall rate. So that would be really bad if that kind of radar return with that hot pink you see here, if that were over the city, we would have, I think, some bigger problems happening a lot faster. But where it is with most of these downpours, so far they've been, we could say, sort of manageable, up to about 2 or 3 inches per hour. Now I'm seeing a pocket near 4 inches per hour across around Manhattan Boulevard here on the West Bank. So there is some heavy rain starting to form and really start to come down, tapping into all that atmospheric moisture with that spot around Gretna. And then also another one, look at this, right along the river. Let me sample this spot. That's another pretty high rainfall rate, near 4 inches per hour too. So we do have the heavy downpours out here over into the other side of New Orleans as well. It's starting to let up actually a bit. So these are some slightly more moderate rainfall rates now around the French Quarter, 0.81 inches per hour, and north into spots like Gentilly, almost into New Orleans East, about 0.6 per hour inches per hour. So that's a good thing if we can get the rain to kind of let up and give drainage systems a chance to get rid of some of that water that may be pooling in roads. We've been checking in with our rainfall rates, and I wanted to check and see how high those have gotten. So let me, oh, here we go. We have a streetwise view with some flooding reported. You can see a few of those showing up now across the city and really into, yeah, it looks like that. Let me pull it up over here as well, over into that part of Algiers and Tarrytown where we do have the heaviest rain ongoing. Starting to see that. That's why the flash flood warning was issued, and we're going to see this warning in effect until 5:45. So yeah, we're starting to see places like Florida Avenue and Fats Domino Avenue, other locations, for example, Garden Oaks Drive and Memorial Park Drive, Paris Avenue and Gentilly, Broad and Turo. Spaces like that are beginning to fill up with water. So that's what your streetwise map is showing you there. Let's see. Let me check in one more time and see what those rainfall totals are, by the way. As I was saying, we can kind of keep up to date with that. The Riverwalk Warehouse District, 2.4 inches of rain recorded. We have some other spots like over in Treme, about almost 3 inches, 2.8 inches there. Let's check out the 7th Ward, just over 2 inches recorded there. And at the fairgrounds, actually just over 3 inches of rain recorded for today. So you can imagine heading into Jazz Fest on Thursday, although we are expecting a lower rain chance by then, with 3 inches of rain coming a couple days before, and also a pretty high rain chance for tomorrow and a decent chance into Wednesday as well. Might be kind of a muddy sort of look out there on the fairgrounds, like it often is for Jazz Fest, depending on whether you've gotten some heavy rain or not in the preceding several days. Mid-City is saying 3.6 inches of rain. And again, we do have rain over these areas still, so we're adding to those totals. However, some spots are not getting extremely high rainfall rates right now. It has eased the rain for some spots. So for a big chunk of New Orleans where you see the greens and yellows, that is not extremely heavy rain, but it is enough, of course, if there is already flooding, to just kind of keep some rain coming down and keep those totals going, and maybe not letting the drainage kind of go as quickly as it would had the rain completely stopped. Let's look at some of our cameras too, because it is not really the prettiest look out there. Excuse me, we have our south view from our tower at WWL. Oh, this is the view from the north end of the tower. Some low clouds and rain clearly showing up there. And this is ours looking down Canal Street from, let's see, the view New Orleans. You can see all the way down Canal Street, that gray and rainy kind of look. We'll take a look over at Bourbon Street as well. Rainy look. Not too many people out on Bourbon Street this day after Easter. Unsurprisingly, with that rain that we've got coming down. Checking in with the National Weather Service, just seeing what else they're saying. They're continuing right now with just the flash flood warning that we've had in effect. We're still watching the rain, heaviest along our West Bank spots, also into Metairie, and on the side of Kenner, unfortunately right close to where the airport is. So I'm sure some flights probably being at least a little bit delayed with that thunderstorm pretty much right over the airport right now. Let me show you a little closer look at that. Yeah, some pretty heavy rain around here, and you can see those more recent strikes of lightning as well. Let's see how heavy this little pocket is. Not far from the airport at all. 5 inches per hour there, and right along the shore of Lake Pontchartrain there, also close to about 5 inches per hour. We're here in the French Quarter. We are hearing rumbles of thunder. I was hearing the pitter-patter of rain on our roof. We often hear that when we get thunderstorms here in the French Quarter. Then it kind of eased and I didn't hear it anymore. Now I'm hearing it again. So we are still getting the rain for the part of New Orleans, generally where we are located. You can see on the edge of Uptown here. The Garden District into Bywater, Marigny getting some pretty heavy rain at this point. Mid-City, a big downpour there. And again, that was one of the highest totals that I've seen so far, about 3.5 inches of rain from the WeatherWise network from New Orleans, from the city. And then near Lakeview, also a big area of some pretty heavy rain. Let's see the rainfall rates over here. Let's see, about 1 or 2 inches per hour with these downpours here. So I'm sure you're wondering, well, how long is it going to last? And the thing is, we are just kind of seeing it sit. That's why the National Weather Service issued this particular flash flood warning. When I put it into motion here, we start playing it again. Let's see, we've got it paused. We'll put it into play. And you can see that it's not really moving all that much. It's kind of begun to build farther back. So that is why we have this flash flood warning ongoing. We will see. You would think that this whole batch would eventually move north across the eastern side of New Orleans and St. Bernard, but actually at the moment we're just seeing that back building trend where the rain is able to just tap into a lot of moisture and it just keeps feeding in from the back, and that's why we have this big area of the flash flood warned spots across New Orleans into the West Bank with those higher rainfall rates. We're also seeing it now continue farther south around not far from Jean Lafitte and into Lake Salvador, still an area of some heavy rain there. And really, when you look around, that rain is edging into St. Tammany around Slidell. It's much more manageable there, just kind of some showers there. But really, this is about the only place that we're seeing rain. There is another line of rain over at Gramercy into Lake Maurepas, some thunderstorms there. But zooming out with our radar here, there is nothing really happening along the coast at all. Over toward Lake Bourne and Biloxi Marsh areas, the Mississippi Sound, there's not a lot. So it's really right over New Orleans, the metro area itself right now. Metairie, Kenner, all these spots over toward Luling and farther south toward Estelle and toward Lake Salvador. You can see those downpours still continuing and not a lot of change as far as movement. So these are kind of these systems that you just have to wait a while to see when this will finally rain itself out, when it'll just kind of work over the atmosphere and finally get finished with this downpour. But when it kind of feeds into the system and keeps drawing in from the south like this, you can get some pretty high rainfall totals. So looking at what else we have going on for the next couple of days, we still have a rain chance tomorrow. I think after this batch, heading into this evening, we are expecting it to subside and the rain to ease. But actually, I wanted to show you quickly our models. They haven't really done a good job with this, which is pretty common when you get a heavier rain event. They may not always pick up on exactly how heavy, but we're at 308 right now. And look at this, our model really doesn't pick up on that heavy rain over New Orleans at all. It has a little bit forming up over to the other side, the northwest side of Lake Pontchartrain by 8 and 9, but it does have a rain calming down by later this evening. Let's look at another one, for example, our high resolution model here. I'll show you this one, and I was looking at this earlier right before we came on air, and this one has barely any rain. It has some for Hammond, and it doesn't have any for New Orleans. So this is the thing about these models. They don't always pick up on everything just as it's supposed to be, but thankfully we did see everything yesterday saying moving in today we'd get the hit or miss kind of showers and storms, and indeed New Orleans and the metro area, the exact south shore kind of spots of Lake Pontchartrain are certainly getting that as we head into this afternoon and head through this afternoon, really. So again, flash flood warning continues until 3:45. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to keep watching everything. We'll keep you updated. We'll have more updates if needed on WWL Plus, where you're seeing us, and elsewhere. Of course, you can find us just about everywhere: YouTube, social media, etc. We'll have more updates coming up also at 5 and 6 p.m. And if anything happens, any more serious situations develop, more warnings, of course, we'll let you know on those avenues and on WWL TV. So thanks for joining us. We're going to be with you watching everything as we continue to see the rain come down over New Orleans on this Monday afternoon.